Hello, everyone. Welcome to not a regular podcast episode, but instead, it's still an early morning recording for Jake, as you can see, the Snorlax mug. But yeah, this time we are going to do a new kind of video. It's going to be looking at all of the full arts and illustration rares from Twilight Masquerade and ranking them on a tier list. So, you know, I don't know. We Jake and I talked about doing this on the last pod, and Jake correctly pointed out, he was like, "Yeah, it's an audio format, Sean. I don't know if the podcast listeners."
I was like, as much as a fun idea this is, and like people will enjoy, which is really really cool. I was like, hey, there's a good portion of the people that just will never see it.
Yeah. So we decided to make an extra video on this one, and if you like it, let us know. Let us know what you'd like differently if there's anything, and then we may or may not go back and do previous sets, at least for like the illustration rare / character rare era. We're not probably going to go back beyond that. That's a bit much.
There's a lot of beautiful cards in this set, as there is with Pokemon in the last couple years. Pokemon's really just upped their game in terms of the illustrations that they hire and the different artists and stuff that they bring on to do these Pokemon cards. So there's a lot of cool cards in this set.
Yep. And quick disclaimer, this is all subjective. This is all our opinions as to where we're going to rank these. So
I think this is factual evidence.
I mean, I'm sure some people will very much agree, and we might have some folks that strongly disagree. Shout out in the comments what you think. But let's jump into it, Jake. I have a tier list up and ready to rock and roll.
What are your tiers?
It's just basically
for some of us, aka me.
yeah. I mean, look, this is just the default one that tier list maker gave. I didn't we can rename them if you want, but it's just S tier, is the prototypical S tier, above everything. This is like the pinnacle. Then you've got clearly this is like a really good art as A tier. B tier is like, it's good, it's maybe not great. C tier, I would say, is like, it's fine. Maybe they could have done better. Maybe it's a little underwhelming, whatever. And I would say D tier is basically the fail tier of for the space that you were given, this is, it's not working for me. Not doing it. So we can rank them however we want, maybe just on art. My brain was also I think things that might end up in S tier are probably combining really great artwork with really desirable Pokemon. Because I think that's when you're going to get that S tier level thing. But I don't know, maybe a great Pokemon, not famous Pokemon sneaks in there. But yeah. Do you want to jump into it?
Yeah, let's just get into it. Let's just find out which one we love. So you said you want to go alphabetical order first. So Applin is first?
Yeah, I got Applin pulled up here on the screen.
Applin created by Katsunori Sato, which has done a couple illustrations since Temporal Forces released. Did the Bronzong and the Metagross. I think the Metagross, the Metagross special illustration they did. So I like this one a lot because I like Applin as a Pokemon, but also just with all the apples around, and you kind of look in the tree like, oh, which one's an Applin? I think is a really really nice touch. I would consider this kind of an A tier.
I want to put it in A tier. Maybe we can move it up to A tier. For me, this is currently, I would say B tier. I'm happy with either one. I do like the one upside down apple. I think that's pretty neat. So as a starting place though, do you want to put this in A tier or B tier as what you expect to find?
I guess I'll put it in. I'll settle in B tier. It's not an overwhelmingly crazy card. But it is very pretty, and it's one that I would go out and buy as a single.
Okay, I like that too. B tier and above is things that you might go out and buy as a single. So stick that into B tier there for Applin. Getting to the next card on the list is Caretaker Full Art. So this Caretaker Full Art here, not a very playable card. So you probably won't see it at your locals ever. You might pull this and you'll kind of be like, oh dang, this was my full art in the box. But
Yeah.
Jake, what are you feeling about this one from an art perspective?
From an art perspective, Akira Komayama did a good job with this. I don't think like you get too crazy on these like base supporter cards overall. Caretaker, not really too much of a memorable person in general. I do think if you heard us do our set review on the podcast of this card, our official Pokemon podcast revolves around the evolving meta. I do think this card is really, really funny in terms of its effects. But honestly, I would put this in the F tier. Like it doesn't do anything for me.
D, you would say like could have done better.
Well, it's not. Well, it's hard because it's like it's not really. And this is the problem with how we did the tier list or just tier list in general. It's not like, oh gosh, Akira Komayama, you sucked at this. No, that's not it. That's not it. It's just there's nothing really crazy cool about this character, right? He's just kind of talking, right? It's well done and well illustrated, but he's not illustrated, or he's not hired to illustrate the Mona Lisa, right? Or like the one where the angel's touching like the person or whatever. This is just like this is just a school photo.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, I think a lot of the baseline full art supporters, and we'll see more of them, kind of typically fall into this camp of like, yeah, that's a picture of them. It's fine.
This is our lowest tiers, but imagine that there's flowers around it, around this in respect.
All right. Well, the next card on our list, Jake, putting that into D tier, is the Carmine Full Art, specifically the Full Art version. So that is the one where Carmine is sort of, it looks like on either a hill, but also underwater. The coloring here is a little strange because it's very blue.
What? No, it's just bright lights.
It's bright,
it's
but you see how there's blue.
Festival.
But you see how there's blue beneath the rocks that are also above her.
Yeah,
it's kind of like in my brain I was like, am I underwater? And like the leaves, like my brain went to fish underwater. I don't know why, but like it's interesting. I will say this, like, I'll give it interesting composition, and her pose, Carmine's pose is really interesting here. So I don't know, like I think this is above Caretaker for like your stock standard full art, but I don't think I would put it into B tier or higher.
Why? I think this is easy A tier.
You think this is an A tier?
I think this is easy. I think this is easy A tier. So
okay,
this is a little bit of lore for you probably because you probably haven't played the DLC.
No, that's true.
But the DLC where this character is based from is all about festivals in their hometown. Like the whole idea and like Ogerpon is centered around this idea of a festival. This is a fiery, excited character, right? So when you think about like this illustration and her like having the is that yakisoba? I can't remember. The caramel apple and just like
Jake, how she's like you're looking at a different card.
Wait, are you looking at the
art? I specifically said the full art.
I'm sorry. I was going in alphabetical order where I just hit the arrow.
I wanted to specifically say full art because I wanted you to make sure you had that version pulled up.
All right, I am less mad at you and now agree with your opinion.
C tier.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I am less mad at you and now agree with you.
Jake, we're gonna look at the alt art in a second, and I'm like, if that's A, then alt art is like triple S.
I just hit next on the arrow, and that's the one that like hit. No, that's fine. The one that hit. Yeah.
So, do you see what I mean now when I said underwater?
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well,
I get it.
Okay, we'll do C tier, and then we'll just move right immediately on to the alternate art.
Yeah, this is A tier.
Yeah.
Alternate art. I just want to. Can I keep talking about this card?
Please keep going with this one. I'm just gonna slot that right into A tier immediately.
So yeah, with her like also like holding this food and stuff and like turned behind you, it really fits her personality because like she's so excited for this festival and stuff. She's like running ahead of you and things like that. And also just En Morikura, I'm sorry, just in general has a history of illustrating these beautiful, beautiful supporters. Has done the Parasol Lady, like super, or the illustration rare of the Parasol Lady, did the Caitlyn supporter, the Aroma Lady, Gardenia's Vigor, Bianca's Devotion in Temporal Forces, Chantal in Paradox Rift. So like really has a unique style in this that really like fits the video game, and I think translates really well on these cards. And I love all their cards that they've illustrated in, and this one is just another banger. Like there's a reason why this one costs so much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm full agreement. I also love the lighting in this. Like the way that he's
Yes.
depicting the
Yeah.
lighting and the coloring of the card. It's gorgeous. It looks like somebody's taken a photo at a nighttime festival. You have the circles that you sort of see that the camera gives off. Like gorgeous, gorgeous art here. Definitely one of the, best supporters you can pull in the set.
It's a shock that at the time that we're recording this is like release day basically for the set. This card is less than $100.
Well, I mean, most cards these days are less than $100 in
I know,
set.
it just still shocks me every time, and I'll just keep saying it.
Well, it's less than $100 now.
Yes.
Not financial advice, but if you find one of these, pick it up. Next card though, we're going back to the Pokemon. We have Chansey, the cutest little Chansey here, carrying who knows what, a bunch of boxes across some place with like other Pokemon involved. We always love a good Psyduck cameo, Ditto in the foreground, Snorlax in the back. Jake, I mean, I'll just say my opinion, this is at least A tier for me.
I think that this is really good if you think about the history of Toshinao Aoki. Like, this is the person who illustrated the surfing and flying Pikachu Wizards promos.
Okay. Love that.
And like the Dragonite, right? The mail carrier Dragonite. And so you've seen this style of this illustrator for so long, just do so many different things. Just being really, really cool overall. And then, recently with like the Unknown special illustration, the Slowpoke, right, that we had a couple years ago, Raichu from Paldea Evolved, the Ice-Q from Ice-Q EX from Obsidian Flames, where they're like turned sideways, illustrated that one. Just so many good ones. And this one just continues in that same sphere, just at the Pokemon Center, just helping out all these different Pokemon that are in there, especially all Gen 1 Pokemon. I think that's another like interesting note. I wonder if Toshinao Aoki like prefers Gen 1 Pokemon because they've been doing this for so long. Because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know is Blissey a Gen 1? Or was that technically...
All right, never mind. I'm sorry. Blissey's not technically
it's
Gen 1.
The evolution of Chansey. So, I mean, pass.
And it's a Pokemon Center Pokemon. Yeah,
exactly. Where do you put this? I'm putting it in A tier. I mean, like, I could be persuaded to go higher, but I don't think it's quite there yet. I don't think it's transcendental art-wise.
Like, personally, I would put it in B tier just because it's not like as memorable of a card as, like, let's say, like I mentioned, the flying and surfing Pikachu,
True.
They did like the Machop and Neo Destiny. That's one that I think of like right away when I think of this illustrator, so that's that's my personal opinion, but that doesn't have to be the end all be all.
No, we can keep the bar high. We can put it in B tier for now. I think we clearly think that's a wonderful card. So
there's a lot of great cards in all Pokemon sets these days. So we don't want to have the A tier be everything and all.
Next card on the list, Jake. How do you pronounce this?
Chimecho.
Is it Chimecho? Okay.
Chimecho. Cool. Yeah.
I want to know what your thoughts on this art are.
Chimecho is an easy S tier. I already bought this card, actually. It's the only Twilight Masquerade card that I own. This is S tier for me. I love the realism on this card. Chimecho. I mean, Chimecho is one of my favorites. So, like, that probably does a huge persuasion on this. I'm sure you don't have the same opinion as me about this card. I love that he's just like kind of free flowing with the wind, with the other what's the See, like Trimecho is so good that I don't even remember what the other names of the ornament, what's
I don't
the
know.
wind chime.
Yeah.
Wind chime, that's what it is. You know, he's just flowing with the other wind chimes. He's just hanging out. He's just having a good time. I love the light, that reflects off of all of these chime echo and wind chimes, and just the wind is consistent through each one. It's not like one is like drastically hot at a higher angle, in the wind breeze than the others. And I just think, Rend has done a great job with this card, and I love Chimecho, honestly. So,
Boy, howdy. I was going to put this in C or D tier, Jake. I don't
mhm,
think it's bad art, but I don't have the connection to Chimecho like you do. That's fair. So that's the bias I think coming in for both of our sides. But for me, I'm like, it's nice. It's like it's a really good environmental piece. Like from an art
mhm.
perspective, but it's not telling me like a story the same way that the Chansey one is. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't get a story, I get a nice environment. It's almost a landscape piece.
I will say, fun fact, Rend is one of the illustrators that had the promos in the Pokemon Illustrator contest set. They did the
Oh, okay.
Arcanine.
Nice.
Fun fact. Yeah, so same artist.
I mean, so Jake, I would not put this in S tier. I don't.
That's
That's
fine.
just my
I
opinion.
understand that. Yeah.
I do want to meet in the middle and say that this is B tier
Mhm.
because is it up there with the Carmine? I know for
Yes.
you really think it is?
No, probably not.
I mean, you could
I'm a
say
little mad
look.
at you, but yes,
I mean,
you're right.
I'm like it's good art. It's good art, but I don't look at this and say this becomes a pinnacle of Pokemon art.
No, yeah, I get that. I get that.
So and I think there's a couple cards in this set that actually push that boundary, which I love. So we'll get
Mhm.
to them. But
Mhm.
next card in the set is Cramorant. We have our favorite silly bird here. And Cramorant is just sort of, I guess in a confused crowd, sort of looking around. And the only thing in focus is the Cramorant, whereas everything going on around the Cramorant is just sort of hectic. And maybe Cramorant looks like he's maybe at a water park here. And you can sort of see the different kinds of Pokemon. Sometimes you can make them out, but
Mhm.
my gut says that this is a cute Cramorant, but I would almost say like I think Cramorant has really amazing art, both in promo and previous cards. That this one for me, the composition, it's hard to follow. I would put this in a C tier myself. Cool card, but like, it's fine.
This one is from a relatively newer illustrator in the Pokemon trading card game. Has only done a couple cards during the time. Did a Ghastly and Temporal Forces, and then also did Medicham from the Battle Academy in 2024. So, this one is cool in my opinion. I do like, the stuffle in the background and the chaos, right? All these kids shooting squirt guns and stuff at each other, right? But as you said, it's it's different. It's not outright crazy.
I mean, where do you? I put it in C, but I want to know where you think
I'm
it
all right
goes.
with that. Yeah,
You're right.
yeah,
All right, fair
yeah.
enough. Fair enough. Next one on here is definitely a bias that I have because I really am enjoying this deck, but it is the Diplin card.
Hmm.
Jake, how are you feeling about this specific Diplin? We put the Applin in B tier. Does this sit in the same world? Is it above? Is it below?
I think that this is a very pretty card overall. I think this is very fun and cool. You talk about the festival, right? It's kind of the theme overall. There's a lot of different stuff in this that gives character to this card. Being at the candy apple stand, right? As the candy apple Pokemon. I think in terms of comparison that Akira Komayama has done in this set, it's definitely better than the caretaker overall. And I would consider this card out of the probably out of the Pokemon illustration ones on the higher end.
Okay. Would you put it in the B tier then alongside Applin? Like, it's a cool card. I personally think this is a really cute card, but it's a little busy. I find the art to be like, it's a little busy. And to be honest, I know this is about the art, but it can make reading the ability of Festival Lead kind of hard because of that busyness. So I
Do
do
you
think
read
there's a
cards when you play?
sometimes. I mean, I guess if you're getting the full arts, the player probably knows what they do. But boy, howdy, if I was an opponent, I'd be like, what am I looking at? It's a lot of
It's
text
the
on that card.
strategy.
Yeah, that's top tier strats right there. If you can't read my card, you can't figure out what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say this lives in B tier alongside the Applin. A little bit of a different design, but very pretty, but just a little busy. A little busy. Next card on our list is a fan favorite, Pokemon at least, is Eevee.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is not just one Eevee. We have a whole, I don't know what you call a group of Eevees.
A slew of EVs. A murder
slew,
of EVs.
A murder of Eevees. That's right. We have a murder of Eevees here. Jake, how are you feeling about this one?
I like this one. It's pretty reminiscent of like your typical like crazy cat lady, right? That has so many cats. This is the same concept with so many EVs. I like that the EVs kind of like all have somewhat of their own personality attached to them, right? You have some exploring, you have some sleeping, you have some, like just laying around, jungle gymming around and stuff like that. And this illustrator, Narumi Sato, has done plenty of good ones in the last couple years, like through Chilling Reign and stuff like that. Just done some excellent ones. So I mean, I like this card. I think this is a nice, soft, comfy card.
Yeah. Would you? I mean, for me, I'd put this probably. I think if we gotten a whole set, or if we eventually get a set where you have all of the evolutions in the same style, I'd be happy putting this in A tier just because of like I think it's a really good style, right? Like I think it's a very cute card. Maybe not my personal favorite style, but I do think that if there was a bunch of them of the evolutions, I would put it in A. I think for now I start to put it in B tier, maybe C, just because it kind of lives on its own. I don't think it's bad art, but I would say at least B tier, probably.
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
All right. Next card on our list is Enamorous. This is
Don't you not like this Pokemon?
I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. It's like with the Thundurus, Landorus. It's kind of the new one of that. I don't really understand this Pokemon, and to be honest, I will say this feels the least like Pokemon art. It feels like a combination of Looney Tunes and modern anime. Like this art style feels very, because you have like those sharp lines, that movement, that like the high angles, right, on that movement. I've been watching a lot of modern One Piece, and I get some One Piece vibes. Or in Naruto, like when people screenshot a moment in Naruto and their faces look really weird because of the way they've animated. This feels like that.
I think this card, I mean, I do agree that this feels very reminiscent of like an anime or something like that. I would expect to see this card in something like Pokemon Adventures, the manga. It wouldn't surprise me to see Goto Minori like illustrate an Enamorous like this in Pokemon Adventures. Just looks perfect for like either an entrance into a scene or an attack into a scene. So like I do agree in that it looks like it's very much in that style, but I don't hate that style because personally I like, or not hate, I don't think hate was the right word. But I enjoy this style. I think that's what it is better accurately stated. I enjoy this style because Pokemon Adventures is something that I personally consume and really do enjoy.
But I guess the question then is like, is this as a Pokemon card, right? Like, maybe this is a hot take. I would put this in C tier, not because
I'm all right with that.
Not because it's done poorly, but it just feels like a weird Pokemon card,
Well, I think that's your bias on the Pokemon itself.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely my bias. The same way that you have the pro Chimecho bias.
Yeah.
I don't love the Pokemon, but plus the style, I'm just like, what am I? I feel like I'm looking at some weird Roadrunner alternate art. But I don't know. I that's why I put this in C. But sound off in the comments for the people who just love this style and the Pokemon, I suppose. The next one on our list is going to be Frostlass here. Um, this Frostlass is it's an interesting throwback to like the what is it, the shogunate era of Japan, the Edo era Japan. You have Frostlass wearing well, seeming to wear, I should say, traditional Japanese garb. It's a very spooky card, like somebody's, like some ghost or whatever. It's not a ghost type Pokemon, but like it's the dead of night in the middle of winter, sliding that, door open to come into a room. It's a very ominous card. Jake,
Mhm.
how are you feeling about this art?
I think that this one is fantastic. You look at all of Matazo's illustrations that they've done, and they've always done this like sense of realism on the card, right? From their pawn art that they did in Battle Academy, and Temporal Forces, the giraffe rig, the Lapras swimming around in obsidian flames. I think that this is just a really, really good illustration. I do believe it, or I do agree, like it's a little spooky with Frostlass and how Frostlass's dresses. It feels very like traditional Japanese, kind of fits the setting really, really well, especially where they are and stuff like that. And I really love the nighttime vibe in this illustration here, and I think it works really, really well on this.
Would you put this all the way up to A tier, or is this still like a B tier card?
Mm, I think I would put this in A tier.
Yeah.
I think especially because with the ability as well, the freezing shroud
Yeah.
ability, right? Consistently like putting damage counters, it's like it kind of has this like eerie feeling as well on it,
Okay.
right? Because your Pokemon consistently like just get more and more damage counters on them slowly.
Yeah. I would say like I'll go with A tier as well, just because I do think it's a different kind of vibe than what we get from most Pokemon cards.
Mm-hmm.
And props for that. Definitely bringing a different style. Next card on our list is the Greninja EX. Just absolute house of a card here. Um, Jake, I want to, without any information from you, how do you feel about this card?
This card is interesting in my opinion. I do like I do love the colors just because I love splashes of colors, crazy spew of colors, and especially when you talk about the Terra, I'm forgetting the correct
Terratex.
word for us. Yeah, like
Terastallized.
terrestrialized. Thank you. The terrestrialization of a Pokemon in battle, they become this like sort of like glass kind of Pokemon, right? With that shine. So it kind of makes sense a little bit that this slew of colors comes on because Greninja does have, some poppin' blues and yellows and reds on its character illustration in general. This doesn't feel too much of like ninja-y. That we've seen in some of the older cards, like some of the older X and Y Greninjas that were illustrated and whatnot. So I'm not in love with this card. It's a little too much for me, but I could see how someone would like it. Greninja is one of the more Pokemon or more popular Pokemon in the trading card game.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a gorgeous card, just purely to look
Mm-hmm.
at. But I really agree thematically. There's what's the card? The painting Pokemon.
Smeargle?
Smeargle. It feels like this should be a Smeargle card, weirdly enough,
Mm-hmm.
because like all of the colors, it looks like paint, and
Mm-hmm.
that does confuse me. I know it's probably meant to be colored water that's coming off of it because he's being terrestrialized, but like, I don't know. I think this is a gorgeous card, but I would agree that thematically it kind of misses that Greninja vibe. So I would put this. I don't know, man. It's a weird mix of like I could see this going in B, but the thematic whiff maybe puts it at a C. But how do you feel?
I think we could just put it in C.
Yeah.
And again, no shame to the people. Just
And this is a
it's
very
really
valuable card. So people are going to still want this card. It's a gorgeous looking card, but thematically,
it's tough to follow up when you did the Palafin special illustration from Paldean Fates.
um, next card here is the Hisuian Growlithe.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Let me pull it up here. this very good doggo, this good boy, just looking up at the. So it's interesting. This card places you, the viewer, in the perspective of the trainer. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a POV of the trainer looking down on Hisuian Growlithe, which I do like that POV. But otherwise, I'll say my opinion on it is just I think the Hisuian Growlithe kind of blends in with the ground a little bit here with the coloring and the shadows. Um, it's a cute boy, but I don't see any eyes, and I don't know. I don't
You don't see Growlithe's eyes.
I know, but like I don't know. Just a combination of things has me feeling like this card maybe misses a mark a little bit.
I think that I think especially like when you talk about the POV, I think that this is pretty normal actually for that like kind of struggle to see the character in a sense, right? Because you talk about, you know, if we're talking about Perrin's POV, which can we go to Perrin after this,
Yeah, sure.
to like show like the second part of this card. Um,
The alternate art
when you
parent, right?
Yeah, the alternate art parent. So when you talk about this card, you know, you're looking down, you're going to be seeing exactly what they see. And
Mm-hmm.
so like when you get to like a sunrise kind of setting or a sunset kind of setting, right, where the world naturally around you has like a more yellowy orange kind of taste to it. This feels almost exactly like what it would be looking at with the Hisuian Growlithe, you know, down, and the personality of the Growlithe in this one is very fitting, you know, kind of coming up to you like a regular dog, you know, when dogs come up to you and they put their front legs like on your legs and they just want your
Yeah.
attention immediately, like this feels the exact same on the card. And I love this illustration by Ghidorah, you know, has just done an excellent job. And also Ghidorah did the alternate art Perrin that we're going to talk about here in a second. So
So
really cool to see the illustrator do both of them.
I am looking at the parent as well. I'm gonna actually put this in A right now if you're
Mm-hmm.
down with that because you pointing out the parent changed my perspective on this art quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll skip down to the parent now as well. Having to specifically the alternate art parent. Let me
Mm-hmm.
pull that up here. There we go. So this parent alternate art, you have the trainer looking down. You can actually see the Growlithe in the lens of the camera there. I did not notice that until you started pointing this out. I also
Mm-hmm.
pulled this card. This card is gorgeous in person. Again, another situation where the lighting, similar to the Carmine, is just really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I think for me, these are two pieces of like two you know, peas in a pod, if you will. And
Mm-hmm.
I would put this in A as well, just because of the story that goes along with the gorgeous art.
Yeah, and you talk about like the lighting too. So like even though it wasn't like sunset or sunrise, you know, the light is basic like you can tell that the sun is basically like straight above them. So to have the Growlithe kind of be like covered in these shadows and stuff and just overall, I think it's just really, really good composition. It's really, really good attention to detail about these little things as well. And I think Ghidorah did a phenomenal job on this card or
Yep.
on the set of cards.
So that is the Perrin in the A tier. I'm gonna quickly just do the regular Perrin full art since we're on
Mm-hmm.
Perrin. Um, the regular full art, I do think that for a typical trainer full art, I do like the use of like this, I don't know, watercolor or like the brush stroke style that is in the background and the soft lines on the character. So
Mm-hmm.
I would put this in C tier alongside the regular Carmine as well, just above the Caretaker.
Fun fact, the illustrator for this regular full art supporter pairing, Naoki Sato, is the one who illustrated the Post Malone V
Oh,
for the
okay.
Pokemon music card for the 25th anniversary. Fun fact.
All right. All right. All right. Well, let's go back up now. The last one we did was Growlithe, so we can now
So we're on
look.
Hassel.
Yeah, we can look at Hassel, and boy howdy, um, you know, no shade to the artist, but this is, in my opinion, another one of those like forgettable full art supporters that like you'll look
Mm-hmm.
back at your binder in 10 years and be like, oh yeah, that was a card. Um, you know, it's not an interesting trainer, not an interesting pose. I don't know. Those are my two cents.
I mean, again, with characters and specific characters, it's really hard for these base rarities to be like over the top exciting and excelling. It's very infrequent that a regular full art is more beautiful and wonderful and more desirable than the
Yeah.
special illustration rare. But Gosan has done excellent illustrations throughout the years in the Pokemon trading card game, both in supporters and Pokemon. I love their Porygon illustrations. Zatu has been really, really good. So this is allowable.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna put this into D tier again. Nobody's gonna be upset seeing this card. It's a nice card. It's better than most card games, cards. But we're ranking them. I put it in D. After Hassel, then we're back to some Pokemon with Heliolisk. This very silly lizard here. Jake, what do you think about this? I'm just gonna open this up to you.
I think this one is funny and cute. You have like the running lizard, right? I've always thought and agreed that this Pokemon is really funny in a sense, but there's kind of a theme that you see a lot on Tonji Matsuno's illustrations that they do, and that a lot of them have these like very interesting lightings. Like the sun is very apparent in here. So you talk about the sun on this card, like you see it reflecting off the water, right? You see it on these Heliolisks or whatever, is very consistent across all the cards that they do. So it's a fun card. It's not the most memorable, right? It's very similar to the Frogadier that they did in Obsidian Flames, in my opinion, but
Okay.
still a funny card for a funny Pokemon.
I mean, I'll put this into C tier. I personally think that the art style it's kind of conflicting. Like you have what clearly is illustration on the Heliolisk, but then the water and the splashing water, it almost looks photorealistic, and I think that clash, like my brain kind of, short circuits for half a second. But moving on to the monkey, the Infernape here. Yeah, this is. I mean, I like the colors, similar to the Greninja, right? Like they're very cool. The contrasty, like blue, red, orange. Like you definitely get a fiery Pokemon here, so huge success there. And it's an interesting pose. The Infernape is kind of curled in on itself in order to fit into the frame of the card. But I don't know. Just it's cool, but I'm not like in love with it. But I don't know, Jake. How do you feel?
I'm not really in love with this card. KRGC does have, very similar compositions throughout a lot of their cards where like the Pokemon takes up a vast majority of the frame, and the focus is right there at that Pokemon. And Infernape is no different. I generally don't really enjoy cards where the Pokemon is like bending to the card to be able to fit in the frame. So it's not really high on my list, but I can see how Infernape fans would love this card.
Yeah, I mean, sure. If you love the Pokemon, getting a full art is like, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Are you feeling D even, or is it C tier?
Sure.
Okay.
I think D's fine. Yeah.
Next card on our list is the Kieran full art. So specifically, go to the full art. And that card here, I've pulled this card. I think this one has a similar. I think it has a similar vibe to Carmine, to the regular art. Perrin, that sort of soft illustration style. It's definitely above the Hassel and Caretaker for me. And I do like the colors. The bright yellow backpack and bandana do pop really well when you physically have the card. So, Jake, how are you feeling about this one?
I think this one is probably one of the higher ones of the regular supporter full arts. This is the same illustrator, actually, Sean, as the person who did the Growlithe and Perrin combo that we talked about earlier, Ghidorah. So I think this fits Kieran's kind of personality and characteristics as you see in the video game. Shy, kind of held back kind of character as well, but kind of wants to get in on the action, kind of wants to be a part of what's going on as well. So I think fits it really well. And I do like the colors. I think you have a lot of beautiful colors on here, while also, the main focus of this character pop when you first look at this card, it's the Kieran.
Yeah. I mean, saying that, would you put it in? You want to put it in B tier as the best of the regular full art supporters?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right, and now let's get to the alternate art for
Mm-hmm.
this Kieran. Another festival scene here, as if the Carmine is at the festival, has the apple, Kieran is over here with two candied apples. Somebody wearing a Pikachu mask as well. Several people actually wearing a Pikachu mask. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this is A tier with Carmine, though. That's the question. Of the special arts, does it reach the level of Carmine and Perrin?
I don't think that it's the same level for me as the Carmine and Perrin, but I do really enjoy this card. I think this is, again, like part of his, character development that you talk about in the video game, and, getting a caramel apple not only for himself, but also somebody else as well, being you, the playable character in this. You talk about the watercolor style that T-Zero has done, across the card game, has just very beautiful the last couple years. So really, really enjoyable overall in this. And I think it's good, but it's not blowing me out of the water,
Yeah, I'll stick it in the B tier as well with the other Kieran. To be honest, if I had the option between this and the other Kieran, I might pick the other Kieran as my supporter in deck. Good problems to have, but moving on now to the Lairon card, the middle evolution of the Aggron and what's the final evolution? Aggron, Lairon,
and Aggron.
Lairon. Okay, yeah.
Lairon, Aggron.
Okay, Aggron is the top. Yeah, so the middle evolution boy in that list. This is an interesting one. It's cute. It's the colors here are very desaturated, which maybe makes sense for this sort of metal, not post-apocalyptic, but let's get junkyard scene. I will say the weird thing about this card, though, is feels almost comic booky, like the way that they have put a texture onto the box, to the Lairon's, helmet. It feels kind of like a newspaper or a comic book illustration, which is a little different.
Just kind of talking about this Pokemon in general. This is illustrated by Daisuke, who I love this Pokemon. I love this art. He's just munching on metal, right? I think it's interesting when you talk about the composition and you talk about the different colors on here as well, because like you think of, a Pokemon who's probably not supposed to be where they are. So you don't exactly like want to notice this Pokemon right away, in a sense, right? Because it's not supposed to be there. It's trying to get that iron, because the Pokemon lore wise, feeds off the iron ore. So I really love this one. This is another one that I would buy as a single for sure, because I think he's so goofy, just munching on, scrap metal.
Yeah, would you want to put this in the B tier as like a cute card,
sure,
doing a good job? And I will say, for all the cards in this set, this one has a slightly different style and aesthetic approach, and it's a little refreshing. Moving on now to another supporter, we have the Lana Full Art, Lana's Aid Full Art, specifically the Full Art. Now,
yeah.
I like this art. It's another, the eyes are kind of interesting. It's a soft one, but I don't know what it is, Jake. I feel like we've seen this exact pose from a supporter in a previous set. Maybe I'm losing my mind, but a supporter holding a fishing rod, looking back at the camera like this. I don't know. I had a double take when I saw this card for the first time. I was like, wait, is this a reprint? What's happening?
Well, I think when you talk about like Pokemon Full Art supporters and their base rarity, they have certain specific poses that they should be doing, right? In order to make their alternate art illustrations just really pop overall. If we talk about, just Lana's Full Arts in the past, I don't think that this beats the one from Ultra Prism that Lana had, the Lana Full Art supporter where she's like actually reeling in a fish. I think is just a little bit more than this one. I do think that this is a pretty card, good setting with her on the beach, right? She's doing exactly what you would expect her to be doing. Just yeah, it's a full art regular supporter.
All right, I'll stick this one into C tier as well. I think it's cute. It's more interesting than Caretaker and Hassle, but definitely not up to the same standard as the next card, which is the alternate art Lana's Aid. This card, Jake, is adorable. Please go off about it.
This is the same illustrator that created the Chansey in the set, Toshinao Aoki, in here. So very similar art style, I feel like, across the different cards. I love this card. I think it's so funny because you think of Lana, this is exactly her personality, just like fun, very interactive with the small, cute Pokemon. And then you see the Wooper in the background, just like almost looks like it's drowning in there. I just love the Wooper. Just a very like comfy style and a very like beautiful art overall that I would love to have like in a binder.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of me that almost wants to put this into A tier as well, just because in terms of just painting a scene in the world, it's just really fun. It's cute. I really love the Chansey as well. I mean, I'm tempted to put it into A tier.
We could put it in A tier.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a very different vibe than the Perrin and the Carmine, but I like it. I really like it.
Yeah.
Next card on the list is another supporter. We have Lucian, another sort of stock standard full art supporter. Gym leader type posing with a book. I don't know. This just falls right into that D tier. It's just more of the same. It's not bad, but it's just more of the same.
I do think that when you talk about the different poses that HNCL has done in the Pokemon trading card game, I think they kind of make some of the more dynamic poses overall in the card game when you talk about these like kind of base rarities and things like that. But yeah, just falls into that same category.
I think I also struggle because there's just his hair is purple, his eyes are purple, the book is purple, and even the shading and the coloring on the column and everything behind him is kind of purple. So everything sort of blends, and I don't know. I don't really love that. Maybe they wanted the jacket to pop, but it's not doing it for me, Jake. Okay, now we're gonna get to a set of cards which I think we can go through pretty quickly, which are the Ogerpon special illustration rares. You have the fire one that I'm showing on the screen now. I'm gonna just lump them all together though. You have the grass one that I'm showing, you have the water one, and then you have the fighting one. And I'm just gonna say real quick, the fighting one does not, like all the other three, it was at least the main color is the color of the typing. The fighting one, I'm like, is this steel type? I'm confused. So Jake, I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say,
well, I think it's rock type. I think that's what Cornerstone's stance, and like rock is lumped into fighting. So I think like thematically in the game it makes sense, but for like the same typing as the energy symbol or the same color as the energy symbol, it does not.
Yeah, so that's my point. It's like, yeah, it's a rock, and that's a rock is fighting, but
it's born to
that's
fail.
Represented as like a brown. But I don't know. My gut says, Jake, that I think that, my opinion, this is all, they're not bad looking cards, but for illustration rares, for like, oh, this is like the top level rarity on an EX, I think these are very much D level EX arts. But
I wouldn't put them that far down. I will say I don't outwardly love these cards. They're not the Chimecho for me, right? But when you talk about the Ogerpon EXs, you think about what kind of is the Ogerpon ES? It's a mask that is in front of the Ogerpon, right? It is a kind of Terra situation, instead of the hats, now there's the mask. So I think this like fits it real well. I do like that there's this kind of like soft style in this. It feels much more like ancient, right? Like it feels more like lore heavy, when you talk about like famous stories, right? Passed through time in ancient history. This Ogerpon feels like something that would be passed in with it, which kind of fits the setting of the entire DLC and its story and its character in general. I like that they're all the same style, really in there. So I would consider them more towards like C or B. I don't think you get them as far as D, but I think Yano Keiji did a pretty good job with these.
Yeah, I mean, I totally can vibe with like the thematic aspect of it. I think I'll be
Mm-hmm.
really interested to see um, Ogre Pawns that you get to see the whole character wearing the mask and an
Mm-hmm.
environment around them maybe changing in the future. Just maybe even not as EXs, right?
I
But
would assume in a holiday set that, all the ogre pawns will get another alternate art. That's pretty consistent what we've seen with like poster child cards and sets when we get to the holiday season.
all right, next card on the list, we have the Fion on this
Mhm.
list. Cute little water type surrounded by what looks to be Whalmers and one Whale Lord underneath it. We are definitely in the water on this one.
Mhm.
I don't know, like this. I think this is a cute card, but meh. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I've seen a very similar style cards in the past, and they don't really resonate with me super highly. So I would probably put this in a C tier. It's cute, but it's not really a memorable.
I would agree with that. I mean, I do like the underwater hanging out with the Whalmers and the Whalelord. I mean, it's probably a little bit more difficult with Fiones to get too crazy with it, right? Because Fiona's not necessarily like a super popular Pokemon when you talk about the different ones in the card game. So I'm not mad at that.
Next one on the list is one of my favorites, Jake. Pinsir. So this Pinsir art is just just peak.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even like Pinsir is that cool of a Pokemon. Like it is a Gen 1, which is kind of neat. But like for the most part, I would say the Pokemon itself is like kind of a mid Pokemon. It's a little bit weird as a Pokemon, to be frank. I don't know, it's kind of a horror Pokemon if you
It's a
think about
Gen
it.
1. It's a Gen 1 Pokemon. Like they had to
Yeah.
start somewhere.
But I think that the composition, the artwork, everything about this is just really, really gorgeous and cool and interesting to look at. Even to the point of like, I don't know if those are clouds or it's meant to be Mount Fuji behind this Pinsir. Gorgeous though. I don't know. I'm hesitant to put this into S tier, but I'm tempted. That's all I'll say. Jake, I want your opinion though.
If you really want to put it up there, I will let you put it up there. I do think that this is a wonderful card. This is a debut illustration from Yukihiro Tada. So, Sean, if you want to get your binder started for Yukihiro Tada cards, this is the first card that you'll put in. I do love the colors on here. I love the illustration, just kind of in the fields as well and kind of up by this tree. And honestly, the Pinsir is the first thing that you look at despite the bright colors, because Pinsir is like this kind of darker, more softer brown, which is a vast contrast to everything else in this image. So really, really cool. I do love the kind of cartoony style as well in this card. It keeps the jovial spirit overall.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have anything in S tier yet, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Is this S tier quality or is it just A tier?
Do you want to put it in S tier?
I mean, I'm really torn on it. So if I'm torn and you are also not certain, then I don't think we put it into S tier. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I want to keep that S tier truly like special.
Well, we better put one Pokemon in there
well, I mean,
before the end of this.
There's definitely one that I have in that list in my brain. But moving on from Pinsir, we do have Poltergeist now.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the idea of Poltergeist. I love Matcha. I think this card art is super cute. It almost feels Studio Ghibli-esque to me. Not exactly the art, but like a combination of the art and like kind of the story I'm getting of like this sort of mystical old world feel. But Jake, what are you feeling about this Poltergeist?
I think Sabotori has done an excellent job with this card and all the other cards that they've done in the Pokemon trading card game up to this point. Kind of looking at their Pixiv or like portfolio kind of thing. Big Pokemon fan, constantly been illustrating Pokemon designs and stuff like that. And I really do love, I think that this kind of is one of the higher ones that they've done in general throughout throughout their time illustrating different things. And I agree, it does feel kind of like Studio Ghibli-esque with like the soft lighting right in this attic, the art style of the child that the poltergeist is interacting with. I do think this is really, really good. I like this card a lot.
Would you put it into A tier?
Yeah, I'd put this into A tier.
All right. And now the next one, before we get to the evolution, we first have to go through Probopass. I mean, I don't have anything against this card. I think it's cute art, but Probopass, I don't know. I don't vibe with Probopass, but that's just me. What do you feel about this art?
I think the Probopass is funny. It's not necessarily lore heavy because there's not too much lore when it comes to Probopass. I do think it's a very funny card because when you think of Probopass and Nosepass, you kind of almost think about them as like statues in a sense. So that's kind of what this Probopass is being treated as. It's probably just like napping overall, right?
Yeah.
Overall, and people are mistaking it on this, thing as a statue, putting flowers around it, putting an umbrella on top of it overall. So I do think that this is funny. They were creative in making this card and the environment around it, like in the middle of a city.
I would say this is probably a B tier card. Like I think it's elevating a Pokemon that I don't usually vibe with
Exactly.
in a way. So I would almost put this at B tier. You've made me see Probopass in a new light, artist.
Yes.
Next one here is the evolution of that Poltergeist. We have Sinistra EX. Yeah, we stay in the attic here. Now this isn't, even though it's a very similar style, it's not one of those cards where like you put two of them together like some of the old ones used to do. But this one's interesting. I don't know if I like it as much as the Poltergeist. I feel like the clutteredness of this one doesn't translate. I don't know. The composition doesn't translate as easily to me. Like I don't know what I'm looking at sometimes.
I think that this is a very, very beautiful card, and it kind of goes along with the lore as well. You talk about, the Poltergeist. If we go back to the Poltergeist, you have this kid looking at this like picture book, and this Poltergeist dropping like the matcha or whatever, into the kid's hand, and then you go into the Sinistra art. This is the person like all grown up alongside the Pokemon. You see the handprints on another picture book, right? We can assume that this is the same one. They put the Sinish or the Poltergeist put the matcha in the kid's hand, and you see a human handprint essentially on this card. So we can assume that it's like relatively the same person in general. And you think about the lore, right, of the you think the lore on the Sinistra in general, like the Pokedex entries always talk about, loves cool, dark places, right? So the setting is perfect on this card, kind of in the back alongside the clutter, staying a little bit more secretive overall. I think that this card is very beautiful. I think this is very well done, like lore-wise on this card, and I think just looks so nice. It kind of tells a story a little bit of the through the evolution.
So where do you
I'm very biased towards stuff like that.
No, I mean, hey, where would you put this then? Would you put this in A with the Poltergeist?
I would honestly put it in S.
You think this is an S tier card?
I think this is S.
Pokemon art and design?
I think that this is more than just a picture.
I mean, boy, howdy. I maybe. I don't know. I think that if anything, I think the Poltergeist is the S tier of the two. Because I think that, like, I understand that from a story perspective, there's a lot there. But I don't think that the art here, like, if you didn't know that the other card existed, and I'm not saying that doesn't matter, but if you didn't know the other card existed, I don't think that the art here is really that amazing.
But like, I think that's more the reason why it's so good, though.
I mean, I think to me, the art, I think the story elevates it to an A tier art because I think art wise alone, just pure art, I think it is a B tier art. but it's telling a really great story with another card that exists. But that's, I mean, like, I don't know. I think if I was hesitant to put Pinsir in S tier, I think I'll put this in A tier just because of the story it's telling with the Poltergeist.
So
In A
then,
tier.
question then,
Yeah.
with that same reasoning of needing another card to tell the story, would you still rank Perrin and Growlithe then as high?
Yeah, I mean, I put the Growlithe into A tier. I don't know. Meaning, would you put Growlithe and Perrin into S tier?
Well, because no. Here's the thing, because you thought Growlithe was a lot worse, right?
Yeah, I
Like you didn't
did.
like Growlithe until you saw the Perrin.
Yep. And so that
And so
raised the
that's what,
Growlithe up to me.
yeah.
In the
And so
same
then,
way.
but you're not wanting to move up Sinistra and stuff because it needs Poltergeist. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's correct. Because I don't think that the art, like to me, art alone, I would put this into B or C tier. And then the story with the Poltergeist and the Poltergeist being so good raises it up to A tier as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the story and the other card is carrying this one. I don't think it's a bad card, but I think that they carry each other into A tier. Now, we can do a quick revisit at the very end because I'd be willing, in my mind, to move both the Growlithe and Perrin into S tier as well as Sinistra and Poltergeist into S tier because of what they do for each other, like combined. I do think there's a huge interest and value in that. So, but let's revisit at the very end and see where we land.
We are almost done. We are almost through them all.
True. Next one here, we have Sunflora. Pretty cute, you know, just a bunch of, I thought it was like they were sitting on like a planter on the edge of a window, but in fact, these are as tall as a fence. So these Sunflora are like, 3 feet tall. It's kind of terrifying. I think this card is very cute. I think that the overuse of the blue lighting here is really throwing me off a little bit, but that's a personal preference. I don't know how you're feeling about it.
This is really consistent with a lot of Shinya Komatsu illustrations in general. They did the illustration rare of the Rapid Strike Octillery, right? Another very, very blue card. They did the Crown Zenith Magnezone, right? Another really, really blue card overall. And even the Garbodor from Paradox Rift, another card that is very predominantly blue. So you see a consistency alongside these cards, and still, even with all the blue, the first thing that you look at is the Sunflora. So I'm not the biggest, like I much prefer like the kind of darker style that Sinistra brings, as I was talking about, rather than that. But wherever you feel on this card.
I mean, you don't have like B, C, I don't know.
Wherever you feel like it fits.
All right. I was just gonna put it into C. I think it's cute art, but I don't think it's quite up there with some of the others. But next one on the list is the one card that I was holding out for the S tier, which is the Tatsugiri. I don't know how you feel about it. You don't think it's S tier?
No, I like this card. I think it's beautiful and I think it's great, but I don't fit the same hype that everyone else does on this card. I think Osare did an excellent job illustrating this Pokemon, and the couple other illustrations that they've done in the last couple sets, in Temporal Forces and now Twilight Masquerade has been nice, but it's so basic.
I mean, it is, but to me, this is like a new, like a different kind of art style for Pokemon in general. It feels like modern art on a Pokemon card, but I think
it's very reminiscent of I think this is very reminiscent of an art style like Pinsir, except it just doesn't have a background.
It's true. It's a little different, but okay, I'll put it into A tier if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's fine, but I don't like. I can think of 5 other cards that I'd like better than this.
Okay, that's fair. It's a little bit of a divisive art style, is what you're saying. A little bit. Next one on our list is Timber here. I've been watching a lot of One Piece. I don't know why, but I just think of Frankie, but in Wano. But I think this is cute art, but it's otherwise, I don't know. It's fine. This is one of those where I'm just like, I don't have a strong opinion. It's fine.
This is a debut illustration from Yuriko Akase, and just it's a fun card, right? I mean, it's Timber helping out the construction people. Timber as a Pokemon in general. You see the girder in the background. Just loves building, right? And so just completely in their environment. If you think of Pokemon, like if you think of a construction project in the Pokemon world, you'd expect to see a Timber in there.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
I think it's very fitting for the Pokemon. I would consider this probably, it's like either B or C. It like the Probopass, it really just elevates the Pokemon in general.
Okay. I mean, with that logic, I'll put it into the B tier then. If it's elevating the Pokemon, like a somewhat forgettable Pokemon for you, I think it speaks to it.
Yeah, it definitely elevates.
The next one on our list here is we have Torkoal. This one, this is really interesting. I almost feel like, I don't know if how this card was made. It almost feels like it's a charcoal style art, which would vibe with Torkoal, the Pokemon. Very different style than anything we've seen, I think, today. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this. I both don't like it because it's a little muddy art-wise, sometimes hard to notice, but I also appreciate what the artist was going for here.
I like this one a lot in terms of kind of what you were mentioning, right? It kind of feels like this like charcoal style with a lot of color. And you think about Torkoal, not an overly personality Pokemon, just kind of like a bland personality in general, but just chilling with this old pottery. What's the word that I'm looking for? Pottery maker person.
Yeah. I don't know.
You know what I mean. Yeah. But I think this fits really well. I think this is really nice, in the fiery kiln, I think it's called. Yep. Just sitting there, probably has a lot of influence on the kiln in itself, and doing the pottery. So I think that this is good. I think it's good. I think it's a very soft touch, and it's not a bad card by any means.
I'm going to put it in B tier. I'm going to put it because, again, elevating a Pokemon like Torkoal. I think this next one, a lot of people really like it. I am not entirely sure how I feel, but Blood Moon Ursaluna. I went by the U in Ursaluna for the the alphabetical.
Yeah.
We got Blood Moon Ursaluna here. Really interesting card. A lot of funny things in the background happening. Between Ribombis and those Teddy Ursas and a Munchlax even. This is a weird one, man. Like in terms of the EXs, I think this and the Sinistra are, I think, the best EXs in the set. This one might be, for this set, an S tier card, just because I do think that long run it might be a card that people like define this set by. But I want to know what you think.
I think this is very reminiscent of the Tyranitar V that was there, the special illustration. When you think of Blood Moon Ursaluna, the first thing that you think about is this fierce, ferocious, strong Pokemon. And so this illustration kind of paints it in another light because it is, just sipping on the honey, just enjoying the time, eating the honey, having a jovial time with, the Teddy Ursas that are like chasing the Ribombis. One fell over, you see in the background. So, kind of paints it in a different light, like I said, but I mean, I wouldn't put it at S tier, but okay. I do like this card, and I do think it's a very good card. Like, I'd rate it higher than the Torkoal that we did earlier.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll put it into A tier for now, and then we got one Pokemon left, and we can figure out what lands in S tier after this. And that is the Wattrel. I don't know. I think the art is cool, but I don't vibe with Wattrel all that much. And I think that this art is fine, but nothing particularly outrageous.
I mean, when I look at this card, you think of one of the most recognizable illustrators in the Pokemon trading card game, Mitsuhiro Arita, in this one. Just someone who's been doing it since base set, right? And creating this beautiful, beautiful set of illustrations that have like almost a sense of realism to them in general. And, when you talk about underwater cards, Mitsuhiro Arita being one of the better illustrators at doing some of these underwater style cards. So I think it's fun. I think it's a good job. I do like this Wattrel. Wattrel, again, one of those, like Timber, one of those Pokemon that are not necessarily super memorable. And so how do you kind of elevate that memory of that Pokemon? And I think they did a good job just in a perfect setting as Wattrel, like dives in the water, diving, hunting with all the other Wattrel. I think it's really, really nice.
Okay, well, knowing that, then I put it into B tier.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think the question is, what lands in S tier after this? If we look at, if I'm looking at like the tier list, you can't see my tier list, Jake, but
I would assume we have a lot in A.
There's a lot in A and B. Cards.
A bulk of them are in A and B.
I'm gonna move the Poltergeist, the Sinistcha, the Growlithe, and the Perrin into S tier.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the theme that comes out, right, is that, like, at least for this set, I don't think there was one card for this set that I think I walk away going, that's above and beyond the best art in the set, right? I don't think there's a set defining individual art, but I do think that there's some really interesting stories that artists are telling between cards. And I think that, like, okay, cool. I've always liked that. And I think that those two are great examples of very good art that tells a story between the two different cards. So
I would agree with that statement of, like, the story and I would agree in what you were saying earlier of, like, one needs the other to be able to do this certain thing. And I don't know. I think kind of like the backhand story that you can get from cards like this are just awesome. It's one of the things that I love. It's one of the things that you don't need to know, but you end up finding out, and it just adds and enhances to the cards.
It's kind of like we'll get to the set, but like the Gardevoir line in the base set, Scarlet and Violet, where it's like if you see the family aging throughout the 3 cards, and I'm like, peak art design. But
something that we've seen in sets over time, right? It's like once per set now. It's a set of cards that run together and tell this, like, kind of story. It's a consistent theme that we see across sets.
But that's it. That'll do it for this this art review tier list thing. Let us know how far off we were in the comments. And also keep in mind, none of this has anything to do with what the cards might be worth. So this is just our opinions, man.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably get a lot of these cards for pretty cheap by the time that this comes out, because it'll be after the set's release.
But yeah, Jake, do you wanna sign us off?
That's gonna be the extra video, I guess is what you could call it, in the tier list. I'm Jake, that's Sean, and thanks so much for watching. Let us know what you like in the set.